with strength and spirit seize the day. Where there's a will, there's a way. Feeling pain-free, active and free, a healthy future for you and me. Where there's a will, there's a way.
But for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Will Moore. I own More Performance, so we're a sports injury clinic that have really good links with Nick and Vicky and the whole gym and the whole team. We're based just round the corner on the industrial estate in St Ives, so we are around there. So just a little bit about me for anyone that doesn't know. So I'm born and bred in St Ives. I used to be a rugby player until everything fell off. Everything broke, so I decided that I wanted to stay within sport, wanted to stay within rugby. So I thought, what better than go into the injury side of it. So I then went to university in Gloucester, studied for a few years, and then worked in professional rugby teams for about 6 years. So I worked in both rugby union and rugby league at various roles in different medical teams, looking after rugby players and keeping them on the pitch. I then kind of got bored of the travelling, wanted to settle down a bit, come back to St Ives, so then I started up the business in 2017, so 10 years ago next year, which is awesome. And then in 2024, I published a book called A Weekend Warrior. So that's all about people trying to fit health, fitness, sport around a full-time job, a family, and just busy lives. So that's a year and a half ago I published that, and it became a bestseller on Amazon over Christmas last year, which is awesome. We've helped hundreds of people with back pain on that apparently, but we've helped hundreds of people with back pains and other various conditions over the years. We've got a fantastic team, not just me. So More Performance is about giving people access to the care that they deserve in a timely manner for the right person. So it's all individualized for the person, for the pathology, for what's going on with them, for their lifestyle. So we're not dictated by tick boxes, by pathways, by insurance companies. We do whatever people need to get their goal, whatever that goal is, whether that's just being able to go to the shops, whether that's picking up kids, whether that's just being able to sleep pain-free at night, or if it's playing sport at a high elite level. Anywhere in between, we help people achieve whatever their goal is. So that's the point of More Performance. As I say, we've got a fantastic team. We have 3 clinics. So the main one is in St Ives. So that photo was 10 years ago when on the first day of opening. So I'm a little bit more weathered than I was in that photo. Then the other ones are, one is in Alconbury Weald at the Cricket Pavilion. That's our newest clinic. And then our other one is in Cambridge on near Addenbrooke, so in Bayborough. So the main point of me talking today is about arthritis. So I'm assuming most people here either have an interest in arthritis or have arthritis themselves, or just interested in it. So does anyone want to just share a little bit about any of their problems with arthritis, what they want me to answer, just so I can make sure I'm covering some bits for anyone specific? So is there anyone brave enough to shout out any?
So RS 50, wear and tear from lots of physical work, and started to get loose tubing, so they went in and flushed it out.
Yeah.
Great success.
Fantastic.
All across the Sahara Desert, an expedition. Managed that fine. 2 years later, I just started to get episodes of being on weight bearing in my mid-50s. Here I am, 72.
Fantastic.
And most of the time I manage it, but its characteristics have changed now, which is that normal?
Absolutely, yeah.
There are areas now that give me pain that I've never had before, and then they always come when I'm lying and I take my leg sideways to get out of bed, and it's like something twangs.
Yeah.
Is that any?
Absolutely, yeah. That's lots of bits that we're going to talk about. That's spot on. That's what I was hoping someone would say. So, yeah, there's lots of bits in here that will be helpful.
That's what's the most current thing.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Most of the time I'm okay, aren't I? Yeah.
Good, good, absolutely, yes. You're in the right place. There's lots of bits, hopefully, that will help for this. So, just for everyone else, if you can just put your hands up if you've got arthritis, just so I can see if you've been diagnosed with arthritis. Fine. Absolutely. Pretty much, fantastic. Cool, lovely. So a little bit of background about our joints. So arthritis happens within our joints. So just a little real whistle-stop tour of your joints. So your joints are where bones connect to bones. They have cartilage in the middle. Each joint calls cartilage a different name. So, but everything within that joint that's a cushioning is called cartilage. So in your knee, it's called meniscus. In your hip, it's called labrum. Every joint likes to name it something different, but that's what cartilage is. Within the joint itself, we've got joint fluid, so we call that synovial fluid. So it's the lubrication, it's the WD-40 that keeps our joints nice and lubricated and moving and tries to stop the friction. And then we've got our two stabilizers of the joints. One is our ligaments, so they are completely passive structures. They're the ones that sit around the joints and stop them wobbling sideways. So they're the ones that give us that stability. They're the ones that people hurt if they fall over on their ankle, if they twist their knees. And then our muscles and our tendons are the ones that we're strengthening in the gym. They're the ones that do all the movement. The ones our brains control, that we say, can you move my leg that way? Our muscles and tendons go, yeah, let's do it. So that's what our joints are made up of. So when we talk about arthritis, there are lots of different types of arthritis. People often think of it as just one. Did anyone just think it was one thing, arthritis? Perfect, good. So there's about 11, 12 different types of arthritis. The most common one, and the one that we're going to talk about today, is osteoarthritis. This is the one that we can do the most about. It's the one that a lot of you probably have, and it's the one that happens within our joints. The other types of arthritis, which are what we class as autoimmune or inflammatory arthritis, they're more of a chemical thing. So they're ones that happen because of a chemical level. So they're in our blood. So things like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, spondylitis, juvenile arthritis. Gout is actually a form of arthritis. There's loads and loads of different forms of arthritis. But we're just going to talk about the degenerative arthritis, which is what happens within our joints. Some of the stuff we'll talk about will help some of the other problems, but if you do have some of them that are caused by either autoimmune or inflammatory, you need to make sure you're getting on top of that. And some of the stuff I'll talk to at the end will help some of these inflammatory issues, but ultimately, if you don't get on top of the chemical side of it, you won't get on top of that. So it's important to differentiate the different types. So the degenerative arthritis is a joint disease that affects your cartilage and your joint surfaces. So it occurs when the protective cartilage that cushions the end of your joints wears down. It means then it gets bone on bone and it's rubbing together, and it causes basically a sandpaper effect. Our joint surfaces, if you've ever seen joint surfaces, which hopefully people won't have, but if you ever see a person's joint, it should be really smooth. It should look like a brand new china plate. It should be that smooth, it should be really white, and there should be no deformities at all. So it should be as smooth as possible. And so then when they're rubbing together, there's no friction between the two and it glides nice and smoothly. What happens when you start to develop arthritis is that you've worn away that shiny coating that's on the top of it. And that shiny coating means that there starts to get little holes that pop up through it. And these little holes our body thinks need to be filled with something. And what happens is it starts to get filled with little bone spurs. So you get little parts of bone from lower down in that bone that come up through these little gaps, and they start to put spurs through. And then that's when it really turns, and it does, if you ever look at it, looks like sandpaper, because you get these little kind of turrets that come up and they cause them friction, and you've lost that smooth surface and it starts to rub in against sandpaper. The more that degenerates, the more of that sandpaper has an effect, and it can wear some of those kind of turrets, I call them, down. and that they can then become either floating in the joint or they become really painful and cause lots of problems. So that's what arthritis, the type of arthritis is that we're going to talk about today. So that should be a picture of the normal arthritis. Let's show. Right. Right. So there was a picture there as well, but okay. So this is what a normal knee should look like. So you can see a nice smooth bit of cartilage. You can see a nice smooth angle on it that has no kind of deformities, and it will slide really nicely. So you can see this kind of layer here at the bottom. I don't know if I can make it bigger without breaking anything. There we go. So this layer here is our cartilage. This is the meniscus of the knee. So this is a knee joint. This is what it should look like, a nice smooth surface, our nice cushioning, and then under the cushioning is another smooth surface. And this is then what it looks like within an X-ray. So again, you can see a nice smooth surface and a nice big gap in the middle that allows that full range of motion. What then happens if we get arthritis is, I don't know if that picture's not going to load, but we get this on the X-ray. And on this one, you can see there's no gap at all. It's basically bone touching bone together. And if you look closely, it has no gap at all, and it's quite rugged. And you can see if you were moving that knee joint, especially on this inside, that is just going to be rubbing bone on bone, and a rough surface on a rough surface is going to cause problems, and it's just going to wear and wear and wear. So that's what it looks like within the joint. That's quite a severe case. So this was an old patient of mine. This was a very severe case. They were in a lot of pain, and it took quite a lot of work to get them out of pain. So normally it's not that severe, but it's best to see it like that. Cool, so what causes arthritis? So the simple things is a loading problem. So it's when the joint has had more loading than that joint can cope with. And this can come from simple things like wear and tear in life. So either kind of manual works, just having a busy life, sport, and just putting lots of wear and tear through your body. It's quite simple on that. The second thing is inappropriate exercise. So if people have done exercise over the years, or they've done it wrong, they haven't followed the right plan, they haven't been to the right people, they've just cracked on and they've done the wrong things, it causes then too much loading within those joints that is then causing too much wear and tear within that. The next thing that a lot of people don't think of is diet. So diet makes a big difference. We're learning a lot more about diet and arthritis as it comes out. It's only been the last kind of probably 4 or 5 years that we've put these links together about diet, and it's all about the inflammatory stuff within our diet. So it is. I won't go too much into it, but it's all about the types of food that increase inflammation and our gut health that doesn't allow us to absorb some of those anti-inflammatory foods that we should eat. That is an absolute rabbit hole. There's kind of weekend and weeks courses you can go on just about arthritis and diet. So that's all I'll kind of go through on the diet, but it's a big thing that is very important. The next thing is chemical or hormonal. So at various times of your lives, when your hormones change, when certain diseases happen, when sort of anything chemical changes within our body, when it's going through the menopause, when it's going through puberty, all of these chemical changes have a big effect on our joints. Again, it goes back to the inflammatory response, similar to how diet works, but it makes a big difference to arthritis. Not only can it cause some of these arthritis problems, but it can also make things that are already there more sensitive and make it worse. So something that actually, from a physiological point of view, isn't causing any problems and isn't any issues, if something changes in your chemical system, will actually make your arthritis feel worse than it is. So it's an important, again, one to note. It's not something that you generally try to do, but it's an important one to be aware of. And then the last one is disease. So there's lots of certain types of diseases that mean you're more likely to have arthritis. Sometimes it's the diseases themselves that cause arthritis. Sometimes it's the drugs that you take for some of those diseases that will then increase your inflammation, because it's trying to attack something else, and actually in return the consequence is that it attacks some of your cartilage and wears that down and means some of your bones become softer. So some basic anti-inflammatory drugs have been shown that it can increase some of your arthritis if you take it for long-term conditions. So those are the main causes of arthritis. So that's what causes arthritis, but the cause of your pain is slightly different. So the cause of your pain is a few things. So the first one is what you picture in your head is sandpaper rubbing on sandpaper. So the feeling of that bone rubbing on bone. And that's a really horrible feeling. That's the sharp, nasty, horrible one that you're kind of feeling if you've got a really bad case of arthritis. Stiffness is another symptom that you'll get. And depending on the severity of arthritis will depend on which one of these you get, how severe it is, and how often you get it. So these are just some of the basic sort of symptoms. So stiffness around that joint that you've got it, but also around some of the joints that are trying to compensate for it. So the joint stiffness itself. And those are the pains that you're feeling that is kind of really deep stiffness in it, that it feels like a kind of locked hinge. If you've got a door that you kind of hasn't been open for years and you try and pull it and it feels really kind of stiff and creaky, that's that feeling. And some people do feel almost that creaky feel. If you put your hand on their kind of on their knee or on their hip, you can almost feel that creakiness within it. So that stiffness can cause that feeling. The other one is weakness. So weakness is a big kind of, it's not really a pain, it's not really a symptom, but when you have arthritis, everything weakens up. You get a lot of problems from things being weak. Sometimes that weakness is caused by pain from the bits further up, and if something's painful, you're not going to want to load it, you're not going to want to get it stronger, you're just going to want to sit at home and let it settle down, because everything you do is painful. So weakness is a really important thing. The next thing is instability. So if your joints haven't got the right level of cartilage, they are going to be unstable. So our cartilage, when you look at, especially the knee one, it looks like a cup. So you have basically a ball and a socket, and it looks like a small cup that your bones sit into. So if that gets worn away, you end up having a ball on something that's flat. So if you put a ball on a flat table, it's going to roll somewhere. If you put a ball in a cup, it's not going to go anywhere. And that's what our cartilage does, is it keeps that stability and keeps that in the socket that it should be in. So if that wears away, we get lots more moving around. We get more friction, and it goes down into that spiral. The next one is referred pain. So referred pain is the kind of consequences of it. So it can be pain anywhere else in the body. It might be on that same limb, it might just be kind of it traveling down as your body's starting to compensate and trying to find ways of doing stuff, but it can also be in other places. So it can also be on the other side, it can be another part of your body. If it's one ankle, it could be your opposite shoulder, it could be another shoulder. It's compensating for something not working properly. Our body's just fantastic at being kind of robust. It will find a way of doing something, especially in life and work. If you ask it to do something, it will find a way. So that's why I spoke a lot about it when we did the back pain. If you try and pick something up and you know it's going to be sore bending through your back and doing it properly, you'll find a way of doing it weirdly. And you're then, after years of doing that, you'll then hurt your knee because you've been lifting something strangely. So especially at work, if you've got manual jobs and you start to get an ache or a problem, you just compensate. You find another way of doing it. If you used to always kneel down to do the gardening and now your knees are sore, you find a different way of doing it that might load more through your back. And a lot of the time you don't know that you're doing it, your body just does it. So those referred pains could be a direct referral from the joint and the arthritis itself, or it could be an indirect thing where our body's trying to compensate. And then the other one that kind of links onto that is that downward spiral. So if you start to kind of get some of these, your body's really good at finding ways of doing stuff, and as a consequence it just makes things worse and worse. And we get into this spiral that we just get more and more painful, we find more and more ways of doing stuff, and then we go into that sort of how do we fix it and how do we get worse, and it's a really kind of tough spiral with arthritis. So what does it feel like? So it's quite a tricky one, arthritis, because a lot of people get diagnosed with arthritis when they don't realise they don't really have it, or they do have it and it's not the cause of their pain. So even though these are the main symptoms, if I was to do another seminar on something completely different, they would probably have exactly the same symptoms. So just because someone has all of these, or even one of these, doesn't mean you've got arthritis. These are just the symptoms. So it's so important that that people don't jump to conclusions, and that we don't just think, I've got knee pain, must be arthritis. This age, I'm kind of this, must be arthritis. Or I've always done a manual, must be arthritis. It doesn't necessarily mean it. So when I go through these, you'll probably go tick, 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 tick. But also when you look at some of these, if you've done a really hard gym session, you might think when you wake up the next morning, you think, actually, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. You haven't developed arthritis just because you've done a hard session last night. So it's so it's always take these with a bit of a pinch of salt. So the first one is joint pain. So it's pain within your joint that's sharp or aching during that activity. It's mainly during an activity, but it can be just afterwards. And the important thing with that joint pain is as soon as you stop, if it then starts to reduce, then that's the sort of joint pain that we're looking for. The next one is stiffness. So it's difficulty moving that joint, like what I said a minute ago. And it's mostly in the morning, first thing when you're just getting out of bed, or when you're trying to get dressed, put your socks on, getting in and out of the shower, or it's after prolonged periods of sitting. So towards the end of the day, when you kind of get home, you sit on the sofa, and then it's really then sore to then get back up or get to bed or whatever. So it's stiffness after prolonged being still. Normally this kind of stiffness wears off pretty quickly. So normally if you get up and get moving and kind of push through it, once you've got yourself dressed and gone downstairs, had a brew and sort of walked out the house, it then feels better and feels fine. That type of stiffness is what we're looking for arthritis. Crepitus is the fancy name for what we call clicking and popping and grinding from a medical point of view. So when the joint bends, it sounds like bubble wrap, it sounds like you're walking over a kind of thing of cornflakes, it sounds like, I don't know, they're my best examples, I guess, but it sounds like you're grinding something together. It's not the normal pops and clicks that anyone can do with their knuckles. We're not talking about that sort of click that's completely normal. Some people, their whole lives will make those kind of clicks in their knees and their necks and their bits. That's just them. This is what we're talking about, is when someone does a relatively normal movement and it starts to make more of a kind of cornflake kind of stepping on sound than it is a sort of pop. And we call that crepitus. So the next thing is tenderness. So it's localized pain when you're pressuring that joint itself. So some joints you can actually press the joints itself. So if they're quite superficial, you can press on the joint line. So at the front of your knee, your kind of thumbs and fingers, getting kind of into your shoulder, into the joint surfaces. Pain on those if you can touch them, or when you can press the joints together. The next one is swelling or redness. So that's it's normally around when you've had a flare-up. So depending on what flares it up, so if we're talking from an exercise point of view, if it flares up and you get a really swollen joint after something that is a normal exercise for you. So I'm not talking about if you do exercise and you twist your knee and then it's red and swollen. That's not what we're talking about. It's a normal activity, a normal kind of going for a walk or doing your normal kind of exercise, and then afterwards we get a real big flare up of swelling and redness within it. If we have chronic arthritis, this can last for long term, and it can be there kind of chronically for years and where it doesn't really settle down. The last one, which is the most obvious one, and you can see these in people's fingers and hands really easily, especially people that have had manual jobs over the time, is deformity. So in fingers and knuckles, you can see the joints actually become bigger, and those are the ones that do stay red for a long period of time. They're often with kind of bone spurs and bigger bony issues that have developed further down the line. So they're quite easy to see. So with arthritis, so how is it diagnosed? So diagnosis for arthritis is quite a tricky one. The only way that you can have a 100% confidence that it's arthritis is by an x-ray. Doesn't mean everyone that we think with arthritis has to go for an x-ray, but that is the only way that, other than going in and chopping it up and having a look, is the only way that we can see is by an imaging to actually look at it. So it's really important that whenever we're looking at arthritis, that it's not misdiagnosed. It's being looked at by someone that is doing a proper examination. They're not just being told, oh, your joints are a bit stiff and they've been a bit stiff for a while, it must be arthritis. You can't get diagnosed by that. The way that we do it without the scans is a real comprehensive evaluation of your history. So we go through all of your kind of history from a diet chemical point of view, as well as a big clinical examination. So we're looking for those symptoms that I explained. We're looking for some of those crepitus. We're looking at how that joint feels when we move it around. So if I move that joint around, can I feel that it feels like sandpaper? Can I feel that it's kind of moving a bit too much? Is the cartilage not forming that pocket? So from a clinical point of view, we can kind of, depending on the severity, we can get a really good picture of what is going on and if it is arthritis. But we can only get to sort of 90% sure that it is, unless there's a big deformity. If it's a big deformity, then you can see it's arthritis. But x-rays and scans are what we can look at to see, is the joint surface still smooth. So mainly we use x-rays, but you can see them on MRIs and CTs and various other things. I'm not a big fan of scans. So if anyone's seen me in the clinic and asked, do I need an x-ray, do I need an MRI, I'm not a big fan of them straight off the bat, because everyone over the age of 20 will have arthritis in their joints. So if we did a full body x-ray of everyone in the country over 20, every single one of them will have a form of arthritis. It's just normal, it's how our body does. We put it through a lot, it gets wear and tear, we have arthritis. Doesn't mean we need to do anything about it. So scans have got their point, and x-rays are really helpful in certain cases, but they're not useful all the time. Because when we get an x-ray, you get the report back, and all that says on that report is mild, moderate or severe arthritis is normally the three groups that they do it in. But everyone is going to have mild arthritis. And as soon as we see arthritis on a report or someone says it, everyone panics. They've kind of, life's cancelled, and they're just going to go sit at home and not do anything. So I don't like to do x-rays unless we really need to. If we're 90% sure we've got arthritis, 90% is probably higher than a lot of diagnoses we get in certain conditions anyway. So we only do it if we're kind of 50% sure and we need to check if there's something else going on. I prefer doing it from a clinical and from a history point of view. The other thing to say with arthritis is the other conditions that mimic arthritis, the treatment and the plans are exactly the same. So why put yourself under more radiation when, does it matter if you've got arthritis or does it matter if you've got a slight cartilage tear? It makes no difference, because the rehab treatment, the plan, everything going forward is going to be exactly the same. So what's the point of putting you through that thing? And if you're going to try and get a scan through the NHS, it's a bit tricky, especially if you're not getting severe pain. It's a bit tricky to get. So in my opinion, it's not worth paying 100 quid to go and get an x-ray when you don't need a scan. We can get 90% sure on bits. So that's just my opinion on scans and x-rays. I said on the one that I always use is the back pain one, that it's about 60% of people over 30 have a disc bulge in their lower back without any symptoms, any pain, any problems at all. So if people can have disc problems and still play rugby at high level, they can carry on with life, they have no symptoms at all, they don't even know they've got it, but they still have a disc bulge, are scans the be all and end all? So in my opinion, they're not the be all and end all. They're part of a clinical picture that we need sometimes, but they're just part of that whole picture. So this is my very important reminder. If you have arthritis, life isn't over. Arthritis has always been a bit of a kind of bad word. Everyone thinks, it's the end now. I've got arthritis. I'm done. I'm not going to be able to exercise. I'm just going to go and sit in a chair, and people are going to have to make me a brew and take me to the toilet. It doesn't necessarily mean it's So it's always been a bit of a bad word, this arthritis thing. So I don't like the stigma behind it. I don't like the fact that it's kind of such a poor thing, especially when we come to sport and exercise. It always used to be, I'm not going to run anymore because I've got arthritis. I can't go to the gym anymore because I've got arthritis. In reality, most arthritis, you can live completely pain-free and active with arthritis or doing something about it. So it's important that stigma has gone away, and that we know that there's loads of stuff that can be done about it. Some stuff we have to alter, some stuff we have to do something about, but there's always something that can be done, that we don't need to worry that some people in the past that used to have to settle down a bit. Cool. So these are the things that you shouldn't be doing. So this is how to not help yourself. The first thing is complete rest. Complete rest is the worst thing for pretty much every problem, every condition. Doing nothing just doesn't help. It stops all of our systems working from a kind of mechanical point of view. It stops all of our joints function as it should. It stiffens everything up. It stops all of our physiological processes. Our vascular system stops working properly. Complete rest isn't good for anything. Pushing through the pain to the other end of the spectrum is obviously the same as I said earlier. If your joint's really, really painful and it's bone on bone and we're getting loads of friction, when you do a certain movement, a certain thing, and we carry on doing that certain thing, it's going to make it worse. So pushing through that pain, it's not a no pain, no gain type of kind of pathology type issue. That's going to make things worse. Wrong exercise. So doing certain sports, doing certain exercise, certain techniques for long periods of time, again, is just wrong, because you're then putting more wear and tear through it. We're then going to get these joint surfaces more rough. That's terrible English. They're going to get rougher, and they're going to cause more and more friction, and then we're just going to make that condition worse. And then the last one on that is painkillers. So we know what painkillers are brilliant. They really have got their place. But painkillers just to get through life and get through things is not solving the problem. They've got their part, and absolutely got their part in arthritis, but they do not solve the problem. They are not They are not a solution. They just mask things to get on with stuff. Especially when we're talking about wear and tear and activity and exercise. If we take painkillers for something like arthritis when it's a joint issue, we are just going to mask that problem, and that friction and that wear and tear is still happening, but we just can't feel it. So painkillers for arthritis have really got to be done in the right way, and the right type of painkillers. So it's another sort of minefield that you can get down. I'm talking about painkillers of things like paracetamol, codeine, things like that just they numb everything. They just stop the feeling of that. They have, as I say, got their place, but they're not a solution. So obviously, if we don't do anything about it, we don't change it, it carries on and it gets worse. So now we've done all the happy stuff, and everyone's all thinking, oh blimey, life's over, everything hurts. Here's what we can actually do about it. So I've categorized this into three things. So there's always three things you can do with any injury and generally any condition. One is nothing, so you give up, live in pain, or just take painkillers, which some people do, absolutely do, and kind of bury their heads in the sand with either this or with other bits. But the actual things that we can do, there's two groups of things. So one is invasive. So these are things like injections. These are things like surgeries. These are hip replacements, joint replacements. Anything that you're going into the body is what we class with invasive. They've got a big part in arthritis. I work with quite a few surgeons on replacements and do lots of rehab post knee and hip replacements. So they have really got their part. Some joints are irreparable and they do need to be replaced. The invasive stuff that can happen now is unbelievable. We can have hip replacements and still play. There's a guy that a surgeon that I work with closely. He did a full hip replacement on a professional rugby player that is currently playing for England. He played on the Lions tour last year, for anyone that's involved in rugby. So no one knows that he's doing it. It's not in the media. So, but there's a professional England player that has a full hip replacement and is playing professional rugby. See, Andy Murray had a full hip replacement, played tennis. He came back. He wasn't at his standards, and there was other reasons for that. But he played high-level sport with it. So the facts of some of these joint replacements and this invasive stuff that used to be put in the bracket of once I get that again, I can't exercise, I can't do these things. It's not true. There's so much you can then do. If you get to that stage, if you have arthritis that is too bad that we can't manage, that we need something invasive doing to it, you can go back to whatever you were doing before. And the biggest phrase that I hear when I'm rehabbing someone with a joint replacement is that I wish I'd done it sooner. There's very few people, I'd probably say 90% of people tell me that comment once we've gone through their rehab of a joint replacement, is I wish I'd done it sooner, I wish I wasn't scared about doing it. So they thought they'd lose their mobility, they wouldn't be able to run, they wouldn't be able to walk or exercise or go to the gym or play tennis or lift their kids up or whatever. So the stigma around those sort of bits shouldn't be there anymore. It's not to say that you have to go through that sooner. That's a decision that is quite a lot of pros and cons to it, and to when to do it and what conditions you need. But it's a really good option that we can have nowadays. But it's just doing it at the right time with the right people. So that's what we're classing as invasive. The other bits of that is injections, and injections, again, it doesn't solve arthritis. So if anyone's had arthritis and the first port of call that the GP's done is inject it with a steroid, that again doesn't solve it. That all it does is two things. One is they put a load of painkiller in with it so it feels great. The other thing is it slows down the deterioration. So it's kind of prolonging the phase of needing something invasive, or they're using it instead of doing all the non-invasive stuff. So there's a lot of people that have used injections instead of doing all the non-invasive stuff that I'm going to talk about now, that is always should be our first port of call to do. So injections are really good if they're used at the right point for the right thing, but they are misused a lot of times. And then the third category is the one that we can all do something about. So the non-invasive stuff is stuff that's outside of your body. So S&C, so it's training, strength and conditioning. So it's training, it's getting strong, it's doing gym work, it's exercising properly. Next things are diet and gut health. So this is our nutrition side of stuff. And then the next one is hands-on treatment and rehab. So I think I've got slides. So before we go through those individual bits, stuff that you can do to help yourself. So the first thing with arthritis is arthritis stiffens everything up. And if you think of arthritis like a blob of blue tack, if you leave blue tack, I normally say on the side, but if you leave it on the side today, it probably melts anyway. But if you leave it in the fridge, it goes really stiff and solid and brittle. So then when you try and move it, it's really horrible, it's stiff, it's not very pliable. If you add heat to it, so if you warm it up a bit, put it on a radiator, leave it in the sun, it becomes nice and pliable. So that's how a lot of our structures, that stiffness happens to. We've got to think of it as blue tack. If it's a cold, damp, wet morning in December, it's going to be like that blue tack in the fridge. Everything's going to be stiff. We need to get it warm, we need to get it hot, we need to get it more pliable, and that allows us to move better. Which is why if anyone with arthritis, you see I need my holiday, I need to go and do my week in the sun, because they feel so much better with that heat around it consistently. And around this sort of time, when we're getting some nice heat in summer, lots of people with arthritis feel brilliant. This is, my knee isn't hurting. It's because everything's pliable, it's moving a bit better. So the first thing you can always do to yourself is get it warm. So heat packs, heat pads, wheat bags, anything that is actual heat works. Deep heat doesn't do the same thing. So it has to be physical heat that raises the temperature. Creams and lotions and potions that say that they warm things up, they work in a very, very different way, and they don't heat the joint up. They heat the skin up. Some of them, all they do is they cause an allergic reaction to the skin that makes it feel hot, and it's a very superficial heat that doesn't increase the temperature of the joint. So heat from an arthritis point of view only really helps if it's actual heat. The complete opposite end is ice. So if we get a real sharp flare up, so if we've done something that's flared it up, that it's caused that redness, it's caused that joint to go puffy, horrible, look bigger, then we need that ice immediately. And that ice will just help to reduce that initial inflammatory response and just help to settle everything down. Ice doesn't reduce the swelling, it just reduces the inflammatory response in it. Ice also will reduce the pain, so ice is one of the best painkillers you ever get because it numbs the nerves. So the reason we use ice in injuries, the RICE protocol is very outdated, but the reason we've always used ice is nothing to do with swelling. It's the biggest myth that out there, I don't know where it came from, but ice makes no difference to swelling. All ice does is it reduces the inflammatory kind of products within our joint, and it also numbs it. So it numbs all your nerves in it so that you can't feel that pain. So it's the best painkiller that you get. The next thing that you can do is obviously keep moving. So it goes back to that pliability element, is keeping moving. And obviously a lot of people don't like to move when their joints are stiff and when things are kind of feeling like they're creaky, grindy and stiff and just don't want to move. The last thing you want to do is move that joint. But that's one of the best things we can do. We want to get everything pliable, we want to get everything moving, we want to get all those chemicals being replaced. So it's moving, but it's pacing it. It's doing it within our limits, within the sort of guidance of of our kind of symptoms without doing too much. So it's finding that middle ground. There's always a grey area in the middle that, depending on the severity of your arthritis, it can be hard to find, it can be easy to find. So if we do too much, it's too bad. If we do too little, we're looking for that grey area in between. The last bit that you can do is take small breaks before the pain builds up. So normally when you have arthritis, you know when it's too much. You know what exercise is going to do it. You know how much exercise, how much walking is going to flare it up. So it's a really simple, common sense one, but it's a lot of people just ignore it, is take those small breaks in the middle of it. So if we know that a half an hour walk is going to flare up arthritis, let's do 20 minutes, sit on a bench for a couple of minutes, and then you'll be able to go and do another 10 or 15 minute walk, rather than just going until it stops us. So those little micro breaks will allow you to then do more. It's like interval training. If you think of it, if you try and go as fast as you can for as long as you can, you'll stop, you'll burn out. If you do a short period of 10-15 seconds of high intensity, you can do that multiple times before you need to fall on a heap on the floor and ask Bradley to stop doing more reps. So the S&C side of stuff, so building strength is why we're doing the strength and conditioning. It's kind of in the name. What that does is it supports our joints, it strengthens our bones, so our bones only get stronger by loading them. So if you don't load your bones, they get weaker. So the only way that we can strengthen our bones is by loading them. The next one is increase the stability. So it increases our stability around our joints. So it helps our passive structures, our ligaments, helps them to get stronger, so we have more of that stability. It also helps improve our hormone balance. So again, we know the endorphins, we know how good you feel after you've been to the gym, and once you've got into a good routine of health and exercise, you know that you just generally feel better, and that generally comes from a better hormone and chemical balance within inside our bodies. So this one is obviously, the answer to this is come to NW. So most of you, I think, already do come here, but obviously come to somewhere like this there was a nice picture up there, but it doesn't seem to work. But, yeah. But I don't know where it's gone. Yeah. Yeah. But coming and doing training like this is so key. That's why we have the links here, is that we know that the training here is the right training for what you guys need, and that it's tailored to whatever's going on. Getting strong is so important, but if you do it wrong, it goes completely the other way. So if you just go and do your own training, if you go to go to a normal gym and just follow a set plan that you found on YouTube, you might be the 1 in 1,000 that is right for you, but that's very, very unlikely. You need something tailored that does it right, that gets all of those things nice and strong and builds through it. Everyone is different, everyone needs something different. So obviously you guys know when you come here, everyone gets slightly different stuff for whatever that might be. So it's so important, especially with conditions like arthritis, that it's tailored to what you guys need. So that's S&C. So as I say, solving that, come here, stay here, and listen to these guys of what they say. So the next non-invasive thing that we can do is hands-on treatment and getting the right advice. So this is where we come in. So this is what we do at More Performance. So the first thing that we do is help to diagnose it, because if you don't know if it is arthritis, if you don't know what stage of arthritis it is, how can you then plan? How can you plan around your own life? How can you decide what you need to do? How can you get the help that you need if it's not been diagnosed? So that's the first thing that we do, that I'm really big on in the clinic, that everyone must have a diagnosis. If we can't diagnose what it is, then we then refer you on until we have that diagnosis, because we can't do anything if we don't know what it is. If we don't know what it is, we're just throwing shit at the wall and see if something sticks in reality. So we have to have a really good diagnosis to see what's going on. The next thing we do is we find the source of that pain. So it might not be the arthritis itself that is causing the pain. It might be one of the other things that I spoke about. It might be a referred pain from arthritis somewhere else, or it might not be arthritis, or it might be the structures around it. We find where that actual pain is coming from that's causing that dysfunction. We then tailor a hands-on plan to reduce those symptoms and allow your joints to then strengthen up. So this is where the link works really well, because we find out what your joints and what your body needs to be able to get strong. So we help you to get strong, but the main thing that you're going to get strong is by having a health and fit lifestyle, and come into gyms, come into doing your normal life that keeps you healthy and fit. So our hands-on treatment and our rehab plans just allows you to go and do that. It doesn't fix it itself. We create the rehab plan that is for your specific case. So every rehab plan for us is completely different. We know everyone is different. We know some people like a real structured plan. They like loads and loads of bits to do. We also know that if we give some people loads of stuff to do, they won't do it. So we give them 2 or 3 bits. So everyone is slightly different of their condition, their lifestyle, what they need. So we give a tailored rehab plan to that case. And then the other thing that we're really big on is support with the knowledge. So it's important for me that everyone understands what is going on with their condition, whether it's from us, whether it's from whatever path you need to go down for it. You need to have the right kind of knowledge and expertise to kind of get and stay pain-free, and understand as much as you can about that condition. Because no matter how often you're in the gym, how often you come and see us, how often you go to wherever you're going, there's still more hours in the day that you're not with a professional that can guide you. You're still going to unload the dishwasher or put the shopping away or go to the park, go for a walk, that you haven't got someone who's saying, oh, you need to lift with your knees, not with your back when you're doing these sort of bits. So if you don't know what is going on and what you should and shouldn't do, you can't make those own decisions in life. So it's really important for me that you have the right expertise and knowledge that you know what you should do. The other thing that's important to me is the referral process if something invasive is needed. So arthritis, especially anything joint related, we can't fix everything. If it's a severe arthritis that's going downhill, you need something doing, we can't do it. We need to refer you down that route. So we can help you with that process if you need. It's not just private, we work with a lot of private kind of referrals, so we can help that from start to finish, but we can also help people want to do it through the NHS. We know the process inside out, we know kind of a lot of how long it's going to take and what's going to happen, so we can just help you, guide you through that, build those expectations so you know what's happening. So going back to sort of some of the kind of the hands-on treatment bits that we can do. So there's loads of treatments that you can get that will reduce your pain and allow to get stronger. So some things are simple, it's just if your joints are really grumpy, everything around them stiffens up. So sometimes all you need is just a massage to loosen up those bits around it. It gives a little bit more space in your joints and allows them to move, which then allows you to do your normal activity, come to the gym, do your life, and that will then strengthen it up. So sometimes it's as simple as that. Other times we do various things of joint manipulations and joint mobilizations to try and get rid of some of that stiffness. We do, I see a lot of people, especially with fingers and hands, that I do a lot of acupuncture with, that can help from a number of points of view. So lots of people find acupuncture helpful. So there's loads of those sort of tools that we can do, dependent on your case, dependent what that looks like. So it goes back to having the right diagnosis. Acupuncture isn't right for everything, massage isn't right for everything, mobs aren't right for everything. It's what's right for you, and some people don't like some of those sort of bits. So again, it's to you. We have some people with arthritis that don't like massage, they don't like being touched. So we do things slightly differently. Some people really like acupuncture. Some people can't think of anything worse than a needle in their joint. So it's tailored around not only what's best for you, is what you're comfortable with. Because if you're not comfortable with a form of treatment, if you're not comfortable with a joint being massaged, you're going to tense up somewhere else. So we might help your arthritis, but you're going to end up walking out with a stiff neck because you've been there really stiff. Or you might kind of hate needles, and we get a needle out and suddenly you've fallen off the other side of the bench and hurt yourself because you didn't say that you were scared of needles. So we tailor it to what you're comfortable with as well as what's best. So that's where we kind of tailor everything to. So that's what our main thing is at More Performance and what we do. The other thing that is really important is your gut health and your diet. So the next few years, I think gut health and diet is going to be massive, and I'm sure I think someone did a nutrition. I think Tash did a nutrition. So this kind of will lead into bits of this, but gut health and nutrition is going to be huge coming up not from a kind of general health point of view, but from what's going on in our gut. It's absolutely fascinating of what we now know with gut. So from a personal thing, it's something that I've been looking into the last kind of probably year, 18 months is gut health. And I do think it's the next big thing. We've always known about it, but we've not really done anything about it. So it's always been a saying. Growing up, I was always told, trust your gut feeling, kind of, I just didn't feel right in my gut, and it happened. It's like, so we've always known it of these little phrases and sayings that the gut is our second brain, and that it's so important to find out why that is. And it comes back to our gut health and our diet. So from an arthritis specific point of view, it's looking at inflammation. So inflammation is rife within our food at the moment, and lots of processed foods and lots of kind of all the nice foods are all kind of loads of inflammatory products in, and they all feed into arthritis. So it's important that you know that. So I'm not going to touch too much on the general health diet side of stuff, because it's such a bigger world that we could talk for days on diet. From a supplement point of view, this is a personal supplement. I'm not a nutritionist, so this is just something that I've been taking personally, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. So this is just what I take. It's just a gut bacteria drink that I have. It reduces, the whole point of it is reducing insulin spikes, which in turn reduces inflammation. It helps from so many points of view. There's loads of people with some of the inflammatory types of arthritis and the rheumatology side that have got on incredibly well by looking after their inflammatory spikes and bits. So this is just a supplement that I use, so feel free to have a look at it. Not relevant to everyone, but it's really helps from an arthritis point of view, but also from a general health point of view. I don't have arthritis, so for me it was a gut health point of view that I took it for, and to just feel a bit more energy and be able to work a little bit more and not burn myself out. So that's a personal recommendation. I think there's a leaflet on it somewhere of doing it, but gut health and bits is so important within arthritis. As you've all come today, so like what we normally do when we do one of these seminars, so if anyone has got arthritis and wants to get a bit of help on it, what we do for anyone that's come today, you get half price consultation at one of the clinics. So if you can contact us before Friday or within the next week, you can get half price consultation at one of the clinics with one of my team. The appointment doesn't have to be before Friday or before next week, but you just let us know so we don't roll it out forever. And it's for the guys that are in this room that have, for you all that have come here and listen to me talk nonsense for an hour. It's just for you guys. We don't do this for anyone else. These are the only seminars we do, so we don't do offers very often. So if anyone does want a bit more information, does want some assessments, it's our full normal assessment, which is normally an hour. It's our normal bit. So if anyone needs that, then there's some boxes that you'll get on your way out that's just got the code in it. It's got our details in it, so you don't have to remember anything. It's got our email addresses, and Siona will get everything sorted with one of my team to get it sorted. If you're not ready or you don't need anything, there's loads more information on our website. So there's loads of free reports that I've written that has a lot of information like what I've spoken about. There will be an arthritis report that I'm just about to finish. It's not ready yet, but in the next few weeks there will be an arthritis report that will have most of the stuff I've spoken about in it. And then obviously if anyone wants to buy my book, there's no arthritis information in it, but there's loads of other nonsense that's I find quite interesting in it. So that's what we can do to help. So that's all I've got to kind of talk about, but I'm here to ask any questions. So if anyone wants to ask anything about their specific case, just general questions about arthritis, you can fire away now and I can answer in front of everyone, or I can hang around for a bit at the end and talk to people. So. Of course you can.
I think it'd be helpful for everyone. So if somebody's got arthritis, let's say their knee, for example, and we're in the gym training, and they're getting a little bit of discomfort or pain whilst they're doing, let's say, a hop squat, what advice would you give around managing that pain during exercise? Is there a certain pain level or type of pain we tolerate?
Absolutely. So it's a lot with kind of any type of pain. It's if it's a 3 out of 10 or below, carry on with that movement, because a lot of time our body is just sensitized because we're putting it through activity. So we need to push it to get all of the responses that I mentioned and to get some of our chemicals to heal things. So if it's a 3 out of 10 kind of dull pain that you probably wouldn't notice if you were distracted, then carry on. If it goes to a sort of 4 or 5 out of 10 and it's starting to get worse, or if it's a sharp stabbing-y pain that you're sort of wincing for, then you need to reduce something. So you don't need to stop, you just need to reduce whatever that is. So if you're doing something with a weight, and say you're doing it with a 20 kilo weight, reduce that to a 15. And if that then reduces that to a 2 or 3 out of 10 pain, fantastic, carry on. If not, then try and reduce it further. And if you can't reduce that further, then that's the only time that you need to change or stop that exercise. Doesn't mean that you can't exercise that limb. So if we are doing something that's strengthening our quads, if you are doing a squat or something, and actually we can't do a body weight squat without getting that 4 out of 10, doesn't mean we can't train our quads. It just means that we have to modify it a little bit more. And that's where the coaches come in of, right, I'm feeling that sharp pain, what can I do instead? And they won't, unless they need to, do something completely different of, right, let's just do a different body part. It's like, let's work out a way that we can still get that strong without changing the session that we're doing. So it goes back to the rest thing. Is complete rest is never helpful. We just need to reduce it to find what your body can do. And that doesn't matter whether that is an arthritis in your fingers or whether that's in a bigger joint. So I spoke a lot about knees, and knees are probably the most common arthritis that I see, but it is the same with our fingers. So people struggle with a lot of activities because our fingers have arthritis and you can't grip. Some of these bars, if you have bad arthritis, you can't grip that bar to pick it up. Doesn't mean you can't do deadlift, doesn't mean you can't pick something up. Just might mean you might need to put a strap around it, or it might mean you need a different bar or a kettlebell, or use a weight plate, or use a different grip. So it's the same with the smaller joints as well as it's those bigger ones. So does that make sense? Cool. Any other question?
Can I ask a question about using these supports? I've had arthritis, I've had a problem with my left knee for years.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with jumper's knee years ago by a doctor, and he said nothing good about it, just went there, so I just stopped it. And so I started wearing knee support every time I exercise.
Yeah.
But now what I've started doing, and I think it works better, I don't know if it's right or not, I only use it when I'm using it on a heavy load.
Yeah.
And when I'm not doing heavy stuff, I'll just do lighter stuff, like lower, more reps, but less weight. I don't wear something that's going to strengthen it or having it not sport, make it work.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's absolutely. So braces and supports, and it's the same not just for arthritis, it's the same for pretty much, again, any injury, is supports have really got its place, but it's only when you're putting it under the strain that it needs support. If you start to wear braces and supports all the time, your body becomes reliant on that knee support. So if you're talking about knee supports, you wear every time you come into the gym, your body goes, well, every time we're putting load through it, we've got that support from that actual thing, that adjunct. We don't need our ligaments and our muscles to do that job, so they go to sleep and they become weaker. So our little small stabilizers around our knees and around our joints, they just weaken up and they disappear. So then that time where that knee support has either got a bit old and it's not doing what it should do, or you forget it, or it's ripped, that you're at a massive risk of doing something else. Not necessarily the injury you wore it for in the first place, but something else, because you're now stabilised as having to do something that it's not done for months or maybe years. So the braces and supports are only for either a short period of time when you've had a flare up. So if you've had a really horrible flare up and I shouldn't have done that, it's flared up, cool, I'm gonna wear that for a week, let it settle down so I can still train, I've got a little bit of support and a little bit of confidence with it, and then I'm gonna stop. Or as you're doing, it's only when I'm doing the higher loaded stuff that puts it at more risk. And it's the same with when you look at some of Nick's weightlifting stuff. When you're doing a bodyweight box squat, you've not got your sleeves, not got your wraps, you're not loading all of these supports. You only use it when you're going really, really heavy and those joints just need that extra little bit, an extra little bit of confidence, because we're going to such a high level for that joint that we need it. So they've got their place, but you're doing the right thing of don't wear it all the time.
Just to add to that, when I sort of build up to when I do like squats and I'm failing to squat up to X amount, I try to warm up without support. I warm up as I move along the weights, I'll decide when the right time is to bring in my support. I don't just put it on from the second I lift, I try and bring it in a little bit later on. So I delay improve the impact of it by delaying it a little bit.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
The better you get to know your body, the better you can kind of feel when that is, and all your coaches will be able to see it. When you start kind of wobbling, you've got the strength in it, but you start to wobble a little bit. The more you get to kind of know your body and your training, you'll be able to feel it yourself. You'll be able to feel kind of, right, at 80% of my max, I need to put it on, or 75 or 90, whatever that is.
You start out with lesser weights without, and as you go up to the higher weights, that's when you put it on.
I bring it in at the high
Yeah.
weights, yeah. So I was more about the support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and especially with the sort of the lower level weights and the normal activities, if you start to wear it doing that, your body won't be able to cope with life outside of the gym. Because if you're lifting a kind of, I don't know, 15 kilo sandbag from the floor, and you're doing it as an exercise in the gym, and you're wearing your knee straps or your elbow, whatever, if you're going on holiday and getting a suitcase out of the car, that's 20 kilos. You don't put your knee sleeves and your elbow wraps on to lift a suitcase in the car, but that's when people hurt themselves. It's, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah. So those are when people hurt themselves, is because they've been so reliant and they think they're strong because, cool, this is, my suitcase is only 20 kilos, or that box on top of the wardrobe, that's light. But when you do it in the gym and in exercise, you're wearing a weight belt and you don't realise it. You go out in normal life and your body can't cope with those stabilisers a week. So I try and kind of have those supports and those braces and those adjuncts to be at the highest threshold you can. So then you're strong in life. Most people are here to get strong in life rather than kind of just be as strong as they can. It's to be able to do life pain-free and healthy and active. Some people want to do competitions. Obviously Nick builds up to those, and they happen at higher level. But most of us just want to be able to go climb in the loft, get something down and not fall to pieces for a week. So if we start to wear braces on the normal day-to-day gym stuff, you'll struggle with life outside of it. Does that make sense? Cool. Yes.
I haven't been to the doctors in donkey's years. I usually do them always.
Yep.
I assume I've got arthritis, as you can see. on my fingers.
Yep.
I also struggle at the gym with my wrist, to my body.
Mm.
I don't know whether that's arthritis or RSI
Yeah.
or whatever. Is that something you could
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. We definitely can have a look at that and see if it is arthritis and see if it. And as I said, it doesn't really matter even if it is. It's just about getting things stronger. If it is RSI or if it is arthritis or if it is just a weakness, it is very similar way of solving it. We get it stronger, but make sure we know what we need to do, and we slightly change some bits to do it. If it is arthritis, wrists and fingers are quite good with acupuncture to reduce and settle that down. So yeah, absolutely, yeah. Cool.
Does cartilage repair?
No, basically, not. It's a bit of a tricky one because technically it does, but it does very, very slowly, and it needs to be an exact environment that it does. So kids' cartilage especially, because they've got so many good growth hormones, the stem cells are unbelievable that they can actually repair some of their cartilage. So yes, in that sense, but most people that have cartilage problems, it won't repair because it needs such an environment that we can't do without spending lots of time doing stuff that's going to be detrimental to other places. So that's why kind of a lot of arthritis might have breaks in where you feel it. So you might have done a kind of a manual job or a sport or an exercise that you've worn out that cartilage, but you haven't done it enough that you've caused a problem, and then you stop doing that. You change sport, you change activity, but then when you go back to it in 5 years later, that it then comes back again because it hasn't regrown. You've just stopped putting that wear and tear through the body. So yeah, no, it doesn't repair. Some people you can get it repaired, so you can, if it's not too bad and it's just wearing out. So meniscus is one that they repair all the time, that you can get it sewn back together. You can, if it's flapping around, they can just pin it back together basically, but it doesn't really repair itself. Has a really poor blood supply. So if you ever look at any diagrams, anything that repairs really well, you'll see as red. So muscles are always red, and then as you go deeper into structures, they look whiter and whiter. The more white, the less it repairs, really. And cartilage is dead white. It doesn't have a good blood supply, so it doesn't really repair itself. That makes sense?
Is there a rule of thumb in which that injection is just last?
Yeah.
So if I've had steroid injections in my hip, it worked fantastically for 10 months, and one about a month ago, it's making no difference at all. Is there a rule of thumb at a point you say, just at this point, let's just go and get it sorted? Or is it, each case is
everyone is slightly individual because it depends on what the value of what that's stopping you doing. Because if it's stopping you doing something that you don't want to do anyway, it doesn't really matter. But if it's really stopping you in life and you're really enjoying training and it's stopping you in kind of day-to-day stuff, then that's where that threshold, that tips over, that you need to get something done about it. With injections, especially into hips, they're incredibly complicated injections. They take very kind of highly skilled clinicians to be able to do them properly. So I've seen loads of people that actually the injection was the right thing to do, and the first one worked. The reason the second one didn't work, it wasn't that it was the wrong choice, it was just it went in the wrong place, or you did it at the wrong time, or it wasn't the right environment for it to work. So it might not be the fact the injection wasn't the right thing, it just might not have been put in the wrong place. It is a tricky one to get right, and you see loads, probably say 30% of injection into hips. Knees are really easy because they're really superficial, but hips, so deep, there's so many structures you don't want to put a needle in that they get very conservative and they can be in the wrong place. So, but if they stop working and it starts to become more and more problematic, then that's when you do need to look down at something else. But when and where is completely individual to your case and what you're doing because you'd need to have done all the other bits as well. So I only go to the invasive side once you've ticked the boxes of having hands-on treatment, doing your good rehab, doing your kind of good exercise, and then injections. And then if all of that doesn't work, then that's when we look down the invasive route. As well as normally if someone's had injections, we've got scans as well. So that's where they do come really helpful in cases like that, because we can see the whole picture. We've got kind of 5 or 6 different kind of elements of the spider web feeding in. It's not just, we're not just looking at a scan, we've got all these other bits. So yeah, it's quite an individual. There's no rule of thumb to when it is, if that makes sense.
What's your take on the Fantastic or
It's supplements isn't.
What's your take on
Yeah, it's supplements are absolute kind of crazy environment at the moment. It's gone bonkers. My general rule of thumb on supplements in general, before I go on that, is that I always ask a couple of questions. One is, what are the side effects? So what is the downsides to it? What other things could it cause? And is it going to break the bank? If there's no side effects at all and you've done lots of research into it and it's not going to break the bank, it's pennies, why not? If it's costing you a couple of p a month and there's no side effects, it's not going to change anything else, it's not going to interact with any other medication that you're on, you don't mind kind of taking all sorts of pills every day, doesn't really matter. So that's my take on kind of the general supplement world. Most supplements, they just get weed out. They just kind of, they don't get absorbed properly, and they go out. And that depends on a few things. One is the type of supplement and the quality of the production. So some of these supplements are good supplements if you're deficient in it, but if you buy it from Amazon that's not a reputable company, again, that's not going to get absorbed. So supplements is a really mad world, and it is constantly changing. I've gone away from supplements, and I think if you eat healthy and you've got good gut health, you really don't need that many supplements unless you're deficient in something. And the only real way of finding if you're deficient in something is blood tests. So I'm more of a fan of looking after your gut health to absorb what you're having in your food. Things like glucosamine and chondroitin, the research is very controversial, it's very mixed. A lot of the stuff that says it works and helpful is subjective research, so it's groups of people that they've asked, take this, did it help? And they've said yes. The biological research is pretty inconclusive. I generally don't recommend it to people to take, but it's not because it doesn't work, it doesn't have any downsides, it's just that the research, we don't know. But it's one of those that if you're not taking loads and loads of supplements, it doesn't break the bank and there's no side effects depending on what medication you're on. So it's kind of, why not? But it is a bit of a controversial subject at the moment, because you start on that route, and the company that I use for my supplements, they probably do about 50-60 different supplements, and every single one of them is helpful. So you start thinking, oh, I'll add that on, and oh, I need a bit of that, that's helpful, and before you know it, you're taking sort of 3 pill boxes of supplements just in the morning before you have it, and all of them start to interact with each other, and they don't get absorbed because one thing doesn't get absorbed for that, and one thing doesn't like lactose. If you take it and then have a cup of tea, it doesn't work. So it's a real minefield. So it is a kind of trial and see is generally what I say for supplements. One thing, or 2 supplements that I do believe are really helpful in arthritis is turmeric and black pepper. They are classed as supplements, but in reality they're food. So if you like turmeric, have it in your food. I like it, so I don't take a supplement of it, but if I have any problems that I've got an inflammatory response to, I'll just chuck a load in food because I love the taste of it. So for me, that's not supplement. If you don't like the taste of it, then you can take it in a capsule, and all it is just that in a capsule, so you don't taste it. Same with black pepper. It's a massive inflammatory, anti-inflammatory properties. So again, that's a fantastic bit. So they are classed as supplements, but they, in my head, go more into the bracket of your food and your gut health. But those are two that I would highly recommend for people with any inflammatory problems. Yeah. Yeah. You need a good whack of it in, and it's normally around that sort of. Yeah. I'm not sure I've had it in porridge. I tend to put it on my evening food rather than put it in a yogurt or on my ice cream. But yeah, it really does depend on sort of it. I would try it. So put a teaspoon in, and then do that for a week, and then put a little bit, either more or less, in it the next week, and just see how you feel. Because all these supplements and every chemical you put in your body, it depends on so many things of your body weight, how your body absorbs stuff. So the only real way of knowing is trial and error. So, but I would start with absolutely, yeah, and it stains if you get it on the floor. You got to be a bit careful with. But yeah.
I take a supplement in June, which is really intense. I stopped taking it once I started taking the statins because I'm conscious about putting anything in the statin. But my pharmacist did assure me when it comes to statins, are good friends, and they work happily together with the liver.
Yeah, no, it's fine, but turmeric does interact with some medication.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what, because it's, like Will said, it's all a bit of a minefield.
Did you say it does interact with
some medication?
Yeah, but not statins.
No.
No,
But I
specifically
couldn't
with statins.
tell you specifically every medication
Yeah.
interacts because
I just
it
thought
is
if
a
anybody
minefield.
here was on statins and wanted to stay treatment, I was really
Yeah.
sure that they are best friends and they help one another.
Absolutely. There's some. I can't remember the website.
I'm interested why they're best friends.
I don't know, but I had to go away and look at them twice before he came and reassured me because he wasn't certain. But he discovered that they actually activate together.
I honestly, I
That's
don't
interesting.
know. Things,
Yeah.
Supplements aren't regulated.
Yeah.
Kind of like Will said. So like we don't have the research to support it. There is what we call like anecdotal evidence around it, and I expect that's where they got this from.
Yeah.
I was just more concerned that I shouldn't take it.
It's if you're on any medication at all for anything, even if it's really simple stuff. I can't remember the website, but someone showed it to me a few months ago. There's a website somewhere that you put your medication in, and you can put in either other medication or normal paracetamols, painkillers, over-the-counter stuff, but as well as supplements, and it will tell you how it interacts with it and if you should take it at the same time to it. So if you are taking any medication and you want to add in any supplement, that I would look at how it interacts, because it might not interact from a bad way. Yeah, I can't remember what it is. It was
So it might not be legit.
fine. I can't remember. I'll send it to you. You can have a look. But it's kind of because you don't want to take a supplement thinking it's doing well, and then suddenly it's not interacting. And I'm not a pharmacist, let alone being a doctor. It's not my world, which is why I don't generally recommend supplements. It's you go away and do your own research from it, which is why I think, in my opinion, that we should focus more on gut health, because that is more diet and food. That generally there's very few diets and foods that interact with medications in a bad. Some do, but normally they're on packets, and your pharmacist or your doctor is going to tell you about those. But that's why we don't do it, because it is unregulated. There's some companies that I like because I look at the production of it, and it's stuff that we've used in professional sport, so we know that they've been batch tested, so we know what's in that capsule is what it says on the packet. You buy you buy chondroitin off of Amazon, who knows what it is. I was looking at CBD oil the other day. I don't know why I was looking at it, but there was a really interesting study that they did on it, and they took, I think it was in Boots, they bought all the ones you could buy in Boots, and they all had the strength of this CBD oil on it. They tested it, not a single one had what it said on the tin. Some were miles higher strength, some almost had absolutely nothing. And these were really reputable brands of CBD oil that it is, and it just shows that it's so unregulated that you can sell in Boots and online of these bits that actually you have no idea what's in it. So it is a little bit, it is scary, it's a bit of a minefield. Medication's the only thing that's truly regulated because of what they do. So that's why I'm more of a fan of, let's go down the food route, let's go down the gut health route, and supplement wise is you look at things that are food supplements, not man-made, that are done in a lab. So I like things that are bacteria based generally at the moment, but that might change. That's a personal thing that I'm doing with gut bacteria, but we don't recommend any supplements to anyone. We do it, go do your own research and see if it's going to interact with everything, but it is a minefield.
I just had a quick look. Drug interaction checker. There's a few websites you can put your
Cool. Cool.
drug interaction checker.
Take it with a pinch of
Yeah.
salt.
Yeah. And if in doubt, don't take the supplement and ask whoever's prescribed it. Whoever's prescribed you a drug, they're leading your drug care. So whether that's your pharmacist or whether that's your doctor, they're leading your drug care. So you ask them if it's gonna do it. So it's yeah. The guy with the bobble hat in the car park. Yeah. He'll know all of it. He'll know if it interacts with turmeric. Yeah, cool. Any other questions from anyone? Anyone that's got anything else you want to ask about arthritis or anything in general? Cool, awesome. So I will hang around for a bit. So if anyone has got any questions about anything, then just let me know. Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much.
With strength and spirit seize the day. Where there's a will, there's a way. Feeling pain-free, active and free. A healthy future for you and me. Where there's a will, there's a way.